What's up, everybody? My name's Dan Kornhauser.
And my name is Bobby Hunt.
Thank you guys for tuning in for another edition of Dan and Bob Talking Sports. And tonight we are going to talk football, all the time. That's what we do. I mean, we also talk basketball, but that's for Shoot the J on Tuesday nights. We'll pick that up next week, Tuesday, our regular time. Hopefully, Bob gets his life together. But
Thanks.
but Bob, let's jump right into it. NFL stuff. A lot of head coaching moves, general manager moves going on around the league. There was a lot of openings, as we know. I think like 9 when it's all said and done. And
It's wild.
and
That
it's
time
the
of the
most.
year.
Yeah, it's the most that I remember in a while. I mean, I know normally we have like 6, 7 or so head coaching vacancies on any given off season, but this feels like a lot. And I don't know, maybe it's because of the surprises like the Joe Judge, the Flores, or maybe Sean Payton walking away. I mean, there's a lot going on there, but teams are starting to make their decisions and bring in new GMs, bring in their new head coaches. And one of those teams is your team, Bob. And I, of course, am talking about the New York Giants. They have hired Joe Shane. I'm saying that right?
Yes, you are. That is how it's pronounced, apparently.
Good. So Joe Shane, they hired him on the 21st, so about 6 days ago. And he's replacing Dave Gettleman, who, much to the disappointment of the entire Giants fan base, was allowed to retire instead of getting fired. But regardless, he's gone. And Shane was the Buffalo Bills assistant general manager. He's been with the team for a while. Apparently, he got in there from the ground up. How do you feel about it, Bob?
I'm totally indifferent, honestly. After going through what the Giants have been through for 10 years now with only one playoff appearance, it's been brutal. Jerry Reese, toward the end of his tenure, was a terrible GM. And you bring in Dave Gettleman, and this era was awful, these 4 years. So I'm not going to get too high or too low. I can't. Also, because I don't know a lot about the GM candidates. We always feel like we know some about the coaching candidates because we've seen them rise through the ranks. We see them on TV. We see them sometimes be a head coach before they become head coach of our own teams or other teams throughout the league. So we have a better idea with those types of guys and who we want. When it comes to a guy who was an assistant general manager, who's now going to be the general manager of the Giants, the resume looks good. The Bills have been a good team, so obviously he got picked from a good organization, but it means nothing for what he's going to wind up being. So I'm not positive. I'm not like, oh, he's going to be a great GM. I'm also not thinking, oh, this was an awful hire. Why did the Giants do this? There's nothing there to indicate that either. I didn't think Gettleman would be that bad. I wasn't like over the moon either about when they got him. But at least someone like that, maybe that has been around, that was a GM somewhere else. Yeah, you kind of maybe have an idea. But Joe Shane or Ryan Poles, who was with the Chiefs going to the Bears, we don't know enough about these guys. They were assistant GMs. They deserve the chance. But as far as the Giants, I'm just hoping for the best. That's all I can do at this point.
Now, apparently, he first broke into the NFL as a ticket office intern with the Panthers in 2000 before spending 7 seasons working under Billy Bean. Billy Bean.
Billy Bean, yes. He did a little
Jesus
baseball.
Christ.
Then he went to Brandon.
I watched that movie recently, so that's why that popped up into my head.
Oh.
But Brandon Bean, the Bills general manager. But yeah, he's been with the Bills for the last bunch of years, and I mean, he learned under one of the better general managers in the league.
What's going
on? What just happened?
I heard some noise. I don't know.
Stop hearing things. What's going on?
I don't know, dude.
You all right?
Are you all right? It sounds like
fine.
from you.
I don't know what's going on, but
now we're gonna be like, what happened with the mystery sound at 4 minutes into the show?
I don't know what you're hearing, but yeah, we're all right over here. But yeah, anyway, in his interview, Shane was talking about keeping Daniel Jones He's going to build around him, at least for this year. Are you disgusted? Is that what you expected? Do you think they're actually going to do that?
I hope not. I hope that they're just saying, all right, we'll say nice things about Jones. He's currently the guy in place, but I'm fine with actually keeping Jones. It's not like they're going to trade him and get rid of him or cut him. It's not like he's that bad. We saw the drop that he is actually an NFL quarterback, maybe not a starter, but we saw how bad they were with Mike Glennon and Jake Fromm. Those guys don't belong at all. So not that really makes Daniel Jones sound that much better or anything, but he's still going into his 4th year. They need to bring in competition. No, they should absolutely not just be saying, oh, we're going to hand him the job. He's our starter. And they kind of didn't say that. They did make excuses for him and say the offensive line is a problem and they've had injuries, yada, yada, yada. So that I don't like. I'm not going to get too crazy about words. It's all about the actions with the NFL. Some guys have great press conferences. Others don't. I think Joe Shane's was fine. It was right in the middle. But Joe Judge won everybody over with his press conference a few years ago. And look how that turned out.
Did he really win everyone over, though?
Yeah, it was the talk of the time. I mean, especially in the New York media and especially most of the cities in the Northeast, these press conferences get analyzed to nitty gritty, the littlest detail. And Joe Judge was impressive in that you can look it up. Everyone was talking about it. He seemed like he had command of the room and he was not going to take any crap, that he was all about business as opposed to Ben McAdoo a couple years prior. He looked like a clown show. He came in like in an oversized suit, but the results were the same. Giants weren't good. So I don't care. We're not going to get caught up in how they looked or how they sounded. I think it is a bad harbinger for things when someone like Adam Gase has a press conference, but those to me are more exceptions. Generally speaking, it's going to go okay. It's not going to be like Dan Campbell biting off kneecaps. So I can't get too wrapped up in it. They should have Daniel Jones as part of the mix, but no, can't be giving him the starting job. Everyone needs to earn it. This is a regime change and a guy coming from a whole new place. He's not part of the Giants previously, so he'll be a new voice, and hopefully they get the coaching hire right. That's the first thing that needs to fall into place.
Now, that, of course, is not the only move that's been made thus far this offseason, either hiring new hired GMs or new coaches. There have been others going on around the league. Before we go into the rest of them, I do want to remind everyone that betting.net is your best bet for sportsbook and casino sites. Head on over to betting.net. Now, let's move on from the Giants, Bob. And like I said, there are a bunch of other teams out there making moves. We'll get to the Saints in a minute. But aside from the Giants, the Minnesota Vikings, the Broncos, the Bears, and the Panthers have all made moves in their front office and coaching staff. So the Panthers hired Ben McAdoo to be their offensive coordinator. They fired their previous coordinator, Joe Brady, who was the superstar coming out of LSU after they won the national championship and the work that he did with Joe Burrow, but kind of fizzled out. He was the GOAT, if you will, the bad version of the GOAT. The guy who, that's the one. The guy who gets let go because the team was underperforming, the offense was underperforming, Darnold was butt. I'm sure he'll get another job somewhere, but they get their new offensive coordinator, pretty ho-hum hire in my opinion. I don't think that really moves a needle in any direction. I know Ben McAdoo was good in previous stuff as an offensive coordinator, but I don't know how I feel about that. The big things, though, more importantly, the Chicago Bears have a new GM and a new head coach. The Denver Broncos have a new head coach. So the Bears hired Matt Eberflus as their head coach. He was the Indianapolis Colts defensive coordinator this past season. And they hired Ryan Poles away from the Kansas City Chiefs. He was the executive director of player personnel with Kansas City. How do you feel about these hires? I know you maybe not know too much about Ryan Poles, but how do you feel primarily about the hiring of Eberflus as the head coach now?
Well, with Eberflus, he has been one of those rising coordinators over the last few years that you have heard about. Was getting interviewed for some positions. He kind of bided his time. He didn't jump at them the last couple of years, but he struck while the iron is hot. I think this is a solid hire for them. But like all of them, and even you can tell by how I talked about the Giants, it's a wait and see approach, especially with guys doing it for the first time. We don't know. It's really the unknown. We've seen them handle one side of the ball, but it's a completely different story once you are the head man. And whether you come from a defensive or offensive or even a special teams background, it's difficult. It's a lot more responsibility. You have to hire your own staff, which are usually at least 20 deep. You have so many different coaches, so many different connections, player personnel. You got to be on the same page as a GM. So we'll see if Matt Eberflus and Ryan Poles can do that. They weren't just in the same organization. Not that that really all that matters. Plenty of times we've seen that. But I don't know what that relationship necessarily is. But they bring in a new GM and a coach together at the same time, which is definitely the way to go. So for the Bears, I think they're moving in the right direction. Matt Nagy and Ryan Pace had to be out. Now they bring in two new guys, and I think they're solid hires. But again, we just got to wait and see how it really pans out. But I think Eberflus was one of those rising coordinator candidates. And hey, the Bears are known for having a defensive identity.
I think it's terrible. I think it's, I don't know what they're doing. I mean, Eberflus, yes, like you said, has been on the radar the last couple of years. The Colts defense has been one of the better units. They were solid last year. They were solid this year. But I don't know if I look at that Colts defensive unit and think of Eberflus as, you know, one of the top 6 or 7 head coaching candidates in this circuit. And I thought they would want to hire an offensive coach. I know they just got rid of one, and typically teams go the other direction. If they just fire an offensive guy, they hire a defensive guy and vice versa. But you've got a young quarterback. You spent a high first-round pick on. You traded up for him. You spent a lot to get to move up and get him. And you want that kid to succeed. He's already going to be in a new system, second system in 2 years. New offense, new coach, new everything, new front office. So it's going to be another learning year, another adjustment. And I thought they would want to jumpstart things and jumpstart his development, because this year was a little threatening. He did not look good for very long stretches. He kind of got better a little bit at the end of the year, but really inconsistent regardless on a play-to-play, game-to-game basis. So I wonder why this guy and why defensive coach. I know their defense needs to get back there, and like you said, they've always had that defensive identity. But this is very much a meh hire for me. It's not bad like the Campbell hiring, how I just completely destroyed that, but C-, I guess, right now, just a meh kind of a thing.
Doing your Walter football grades, I guess.
I mean, it's just
Why
the feeling. Not? It's just one of those, you know what I'm saying? Like, you look at it, it doesn't move the needle in any direction.
Well, I think what'll make this fun too, especially as we just go through the ones where there is someone that's already in place that was hired recently. What would you? I'm going to ask. What would your recommendation have been? Who would you have gone after? And don't go like naming a bunch of guys. Just give me one or two that you think for that team would have been a better fit. So for the Bears, who we're talking about now, who would you have preferred them to hire? Who would have been getting a good grade from you?
Brian Daboll from Buffalo, their offensive coordinator. Byron Leftwich, the Bucs offensive coordinator. Doug Peterson, the former Eagles head coach, who I don't even think was coaching last year, but he's up there. I don't know why Eric Bieniemy doesn't get more love. I know he interviewed with a few teams already. He did not interview with Chicago, as far as I know, but he's someone who would have been on the list too. Like, there's Kellen Moore, the Cowboys.
I said don't rattle off every name. I said
I'm not rattling off names, but that's at least 5 right off the top.
Guys, what are we doing? Give me one or two that would have fit. Like, let's say, all right, Brian Daboll. We'll just throw it out there. It fits the Dolphins or Giants. But for the Bears, who would you think would have been the best option? Leftwich or
Daboll and Moore.
Okay, yeah, that's what I'm looking for.
I think Daboll and Moore would have been the top guys. We saw what Daboll's done with Allen. I think he knows he sees the recipe for how to groom a quarterback. They need to tailor the system to Justin Fields. He's not the same kind of a quarterback. He's not big. He's not that size. Doesn't have the arm of Allen. But he is still athletic. He is still fast. He still can sling it, and I still like him as a prospect. But not a fan of the coaching hire. But let's move on from Chicago. I'm done with them. But let's go to Denver. Let's talk about Nathaniel Hackett. The Broncos hired him. The Packers offensive coordinator the last 3 seasons. They actually just hired him today. It was getting finalized this morning, but that's demand pending something random unforeseen. How do you feel about this hire?
This I'm not quite as crazy about. Basically, yeah, you had Aaron Rodgers, Aaron Jones, Devontae Adams, had a star-studded offense, very good offensive line. It's kind of easy to look good in that situation. Now, you might say, or other people would think, oh, well, what about Dable with Josh Allen or some of these other guys? But you look at those where it's all right, he was instrumental in his development at least.
Mm-hmm.
Now, again, you never know. We'll wait and see. Some guys we panned as hires in the past wound up being good. Others we thought were great hires and they were threatening or awful. We do hit on plenty too. I remember when we talked about guys like Adam Gase, we thought it was a terrible hire, but that's a few years ago. When I look at Nathaniel Hackett, I think he's a product of coaching one of the all-time greats in Aaron Rodgers. He was in a good situation. People like that are going to get jobs. That's why almost all the guys getting interviewed right now are coordinators from successful teams that made the playoffs. I don't know if he gets enough credit for that. I don't know if he's necessarily going to be a great fit for the Broncos, but to what you talked about before, which is so true, very often we do see teams go the other way. They just had a defensive guy in Vic Fangio. Now they're going the opposite way with an offensive coordinator in Nathaniel Hackett. So I think it's higher, as you would put it. But I like, and for me, I like the Eberflus hire more for the Bears than I do the Broncos hiring Nathaniel Hackett.
This is another, not a fan. I mean, I like this a little bit more because at least this guy's an offensive coach. And I'd have to look into it, but I'm not sure if he called the plays out in Green Bay or...
That's a good question. I feel like I always see Matt LaFleur with the play sheet. So
yeah, that's what I'm wondering. So you got a guy who's never been a head coach, who probably has never played called plays, and like he said, most of his success has been riding Aaron Rodgers. And when you're riding Aaron, a future Hall of Famer, one of the top quarterbacks of all time, it's easy to look good. And we've seen Adam Gase and other coordinators get jobs after coaching. Gase was coaching Peyton Manning in Denver, got a job after that. And we've seen coaches do that. And it doesn't work out that often when something like this. At least it's an offensive coach because they're going to have a new quarterback. That's the only thing that's holding this team back. Teddy Bridgewater's a free agent. Drew Lock is completely useless. We know what that is. It's over for those. It's over for him being a franchise quarterback at any point. It looks like he had his shot. They've got talent. They had a good running game, and he looked average at best. I mean, I guess he looked a little better this year than previously, but they're gonna be getting a new quarterback now.
Want to add to that? Sorry, it's just they're getting the Packers offensive coordinator. Maybe they're hoping if Aaron Rodgers has a good relationship with him, maybe because they're definitely a team that would be appealing to Rodgers.
Well, that's the exact next thing I was going to say is if they're hiring him with the hope that Rodgers says, I want to go to Denver, because Rodgers did say if he's leaving Green Bay, he wants to go west. And he's not going to go somewhere where they're rebuilding. He's going to go somewhere where it can be a plug-and-play Super Bowl contender. I don't think Denver should be that high on the list, but theoretically, they are ready. A plug and play. They've got the pieces at receiver. They've got the running game. They will have a coach that Rodgers is familiar with and that Rodgers likes. They got a good defense, solid secondary. So they do have a lot of free agents this offseason, but they do also have about $50 million in projected cap space. So they'll have to make some big decisions on some key pieces like Kyle Fuller, like Melvin Gordon, like Bryce Callahan, A.J. Johnson, inside linebacker. They'll have to make some decisions on both sides of the ball with some key contributors, but they've got cap space. It could feasibly work. Now, since we mentioned Aaron and we were just talking about that possibility, I do want to shift gears. Let's move on from the head coaches and the GMs and stuff for the moment. Let's talk about Aaron since we were just talking about him. Let's push it forward. They lost. It was a disappointing postseason for Green Bay again. So What's next for Rodgers, Bob? I think he's got 1 year left on his current contract or something like that. Devontae Adams is a free agent. This team just lost their offensive coordinator, who went off to be a head coach in Denver. They don't have any cap space. Besides New Orleans, they are the second worst team in projected cap space at negative 41 million plus. Just brutal. Devontae Adams is a free agent. They got a lot of decisions to make. What's going on, Bob? What's the deal here?
Well, what's next for Rodgers is basically to just have reports come out in the media about what he said on Pat McAfee's show, or when he meets up with Joe Rogan, whatever next crazy thing he does, make headlines for different reasons. Nothing nefarious, nothing that terrible, but that's going to be happening. We're going to hear from, this isn't the last we've heard of him over the next few months, even though it will be the NFL offseason very soon. But he's going to wait and see. He's going to wait and see how things play out, what they maybe do with Devontae Adams, if they tag him, how they wind up getting under the cap. As much as they're in cap hell, and so are the Saints and plenty of other teams around the league, it's very rare that we see a team get penalized. It doesn't happen very often for them being over the cap. So they'll do the gymnastics, the cap gymnastics that they're going to need to do, but it will be difficult. He's going to bide his time. Now, I think it seems like the relationship got a little bit massaged there. He's not saying, oh, I'm definitely not going back to Green Bay. Definitely seems like he could go back there, but he'll need a new contract, especially if he gets traded. He's getting a new contract. So I do think Denver, like we were just talking about with their hire of Nathaniel Hackett, is a distinct possibility. You look at that roster, and it seems kind of like it was for Brady when he was a free agent. It seems set up. You go into a good situation where they have every piece you may need. So I think he'll lean right now towards, okay, yeah, I want to be the Packer for the rest of my life. But if they can't bring back Devontae Adams, or they have to be cutting tons of veterans on the team, or do something with David Bakhtiari's big contract, yeah, he could want to be out. And I think they'd trade him to an AFC team, whether that's the Steelers or the Broncos, someone like that. But I highly doubt he'll wind up on a team, basically.
Now, the Packers are in a lot of trouble because, yeah, Rodgers is taking up $46 million cap space, which is a huge monumental hit. But Zadarius Smith has got a cap hit of $27.6 mil. David Bakhtiari's $22.7. Preston Smith's got a $20.9, almost $21 million cap hit. These are pretty sizable hits. They're going to have to do a lot. And besides Devontae Adams, Rashawn Gary's a free agent. Robert Tonyan's a free agent. All their other receivers are pretty much free agents as well. So they're going to have to totally retool their own receiving core. And even if they do a bunch of restructuring, which they're going to, they are going to lose some of these guys. They might lose Zadarius Smith or Preston Smith as a cap casualty. They might cut Randall Cobb because he's making $9.5 million. And let's be honest, it's Randall friggin' Cobb. He's not worth $9.5 million in 2022 going forward. So it's real threatening out there for Green Bay. But aside from Green Bay, there's another quarterback, another legend, another Hall of Famer. This one is better than Aaron Rodgers, and I can only be talking about one guy, and I'm talking about the GOAT, Tom Brady. The Bucs lost. I know my buddy Vance is disappointed, but before we go into the Bucs and Tampa Bay and Brady, I want to remind you guys that your top sportsbook comparison site is betting.net, and betting.net offers extensive reviews on the best sports books out there. So head on over to betting.net, give it a look-see. And Brady's in a similar situation as Rodgers, but while Rodgers is most likely coming back, just going to be donning a different uniform, Brady looks like it's retirement or bust. It's either come back for, maybe one or two more, maybe, because it sounds like he's really, really on the edge right now, or it's retire, call it a career, walk into the sunset as the GOAT, but have a sour taste in your mouth of defeat. A lot of what Tampa Bay is going to do this offseason will depend on what Tom Brady does. Because if he comes back, bring everyone back. They got a bunch of free agents too. They're another team that's got a bevy of key contributors. And it goes beyond Chris Godwin. It's Jason Pierre-Paul, Ryan Jensen, Sue, Gronk, Lenny Fournette. It's pretty much all their major contributors and starters at the top and a bunch of depth guys Carlton Davis, their starting corner, Ronald Jones, OJ Howard. I mean, there's a lot going on there too. So they're going to have to figure things out. And they're another team that doesn't have a lot of cap space, not as poor as Green Bay or New Orleans, but they're still going to be at around 20, 21, $22 million in cap space projected right now with all these free agents. Brady's been sounding on the edge, Bob. Is this it? He's been talking a lot about family and what's right for your family, and it's not always about you and things like that. Is the GOAT going to walk away? What's going on? Is he going to come back? Is it blow it up in Tampa Bay?
There's zero chance Tom Brady's not playing next season. He's going to be on the Bucs. He's going to play at least one more year. I am so confident about that. I think he's greasing the skids, preparing people. Yes, I do think it's on his mind. Obviously, he's 44. He'll be 45 when the season starts. Ridiculous. I don't think he'll go to 50 like we would sometimes hear him joke about in previous years. And obviously, people feel like, hell, he could the way he's still playing at 44. He could win MVP for this season. I think it'll wind up going to the Rodgers, but it's one of these two guys. So he's still obviously playing at a high level. But yes, it's on his mind. He hasn't been around a lot for his family during those months when the football season's going on. Pretty much when training camp starts at the end of July to most times early February or at the very least January. So, yeah, I think it's definitely weighing on his mind. He's getting people prepared also for when he does make that announcement. But I have that feeling that he's got a bad taste in his mouth coming off that loss in the divisional round against the Rams. They still have a good team. They're not going to have to do anything too crazy. Yes, they have some cap issues as well, but not quite as drastic. So to me, no chance he doesn't play next year. He'll be back. It's just a matter of how many more years does he play. I think, yes, it's only going to be probably one or two more.
So we're not going to get Tom Brady for another 5 years, unfortunately.
Oh, yeah. Fortunately, in my opinion, I'm done with him. I like him. I appreciate him. He is an all-time great, the greatest of all time. We can give him all the accolades, but it's time. It's time for some new blood. It's time. I don't need to see Brady win 8 Super Bowls. He has 7. I'm okay with the Bucs. I don't hate them like the Patriots. It's not all about Tom Brady, and it's time. He can play one more year. I think he will, but then maybe hang him up.
Okay, fair enough. Now, I have how many more things do I have here? Oh, well, I mean, if we're going to be talking about Hall of Fame quarterbacks, one just retired, Big Ben, walking away from the game, 18 years with Pittsburgh, won a couple rings, legend. What's next for them as they wave goodbye to the final quarterback of that legendary class with Eli and Phillip Rivers, and was that J.P. Losman at the end of the first round too?
Yes, it was J.P. Losman.
Legendary.
All cocky about going into Buffalo and being a legend. Not quite, son. Not quite.
Not quite. Not today, buddy. Not today. So, yeah, he retired. What's next with Pittsburgh at the position and in general?
I'm sure their fans, their front office, the ownership dreading it because it's always nice when you know you have a quarterback and that guy spends 15 plus years of his career with you. They haven't had to worry about the position in quite some time. I don't worry too much about the Steelers, though. They're one of those franchises that seems to usually have good luck, kind of like the Packers. So even when they didn't have Big Ben Roethlisberger, they got some good years out of guys like Tommy Maddox and Cordell Stewart. Now, obviously, they didn't win chips with those guys, so you still look for better than that. But for the most part, the Steelers are never like bottoming out and just completely stinking. And especially under Mike Tomlin, they've never had a losing season. Once again, this year they were above 500, but they've always been at or above 500 with him as the head coach. So I don't think it's all bleak for them. They still have talent, but it's going to hurt. And even though he wasn't Big Ben over the last couple of years, it's a guy that you usually can depend on. So it's going to be tough going forward for them, but they still have a decent amount of talent. Draft is really where they'll target someone. Of course, if Aaron Rodgers is in and playing there, they'll explore that possibility. But knowing how Pittsburgh operates, they're a draft team. That's where they get their guys. They're not as likely to make that huge, splashy trade or free agent signing. And if everyone saw me looking at the other screen, basically I just want to look at Big Ben's stats where he ranks all time. Also, I can confirm Nathaniel Hackett did not call plays, in Green Bay, for those who have been with us for a while now in the show. But yeah, you had 64,000 passing yards in his career for Big Ben, 418 TDs, 211 interceptions, so 2-to-1 ratio pretty much. All-time greats. Him, Eli, and Phillip Rivers should all go into the Hall of Fame. So it's sad to see, but again, that's why some players like Brady, they want to get out when they're at or near the top. We saw how Eli fizzled out. We saw how Big Ben fizzled out toward the end of their careers. It's sad, but regardless, still 2-time Super Bowl champions, and they're going to be Hall of Famers in 5 years.
Oh yeah, that's for sure. Now we're going to stick with the retired theme for a hot second, but we're going to go to that. I just want to remind everyone that the Grueling Truth is powered by betting.net, and betting.net is your best bet for finding the online casino or sportsbook that's right for you. Head on over to betting.net. Now, sticking, like I said, with the retired theme, Big Ben retired, and so did Sean Payton. Well, retired, walked away, whatever. Point is, he's no longer coaching the Saints. And as I said earlier, they are one of those teams that are in salary cap hell. They have the worst cap situation. Right now, they are about $74 million in the red. They're going to have to clear out a lot. They've got a lot of dead cap money. That's not going to help. And they don't have a quarterback. They don't have any cap space. Now they don't have a head coach. Their offense is disappointing. Their star wide receivers probably going to be out. All they have on offense now is Alvin Kamara. Their star left tackle is a free agent in Teron Armstead, whatever. Marcus Williams, their stud young safety, 25 years old, is a free agent. Jameis Winston. It's real threatening, Bob. I remember, when it happened, when the news broke, I texted you guys and I was disgusted. For me, it just looked like he was bailing because he knows the team's going to suck. They're not going to go anywhere. They're not going to do anything this year. They're in salary cap hell. They're going to have to totally tear it down. They're probably going to lose Armstead and Williams, and they're going to have to get rid of other guys. It's going to get ugly out there. So I felt like he walked away from the team. He didn't build it. I know what's his name? Mickey Loomis is the GM?
Yeah, he's been the GM for quite some time.
So he's there, but let's be honest. Payton was the one with the power here. If Payton wanted a player, if he didn't want a player, either way he decided, that's what it was going to be. Loomis was just there to sign the checks and sign off on everything. Let's be completely honest. So, yes, he wasn't the GM, but he had the power, and he okayed, at the very least, he signed on for all these moves and all these contracts and trying to win now with Breeze, and even after Breeze, trying to win now with the team that they had. It wasn't a bad team. A lot of good pieces on defense. They just fell apart with injuries and aren't quite right at quarterback. How do you feel about the Saints moving forward? What do you think about Payton?
Kind of froze up there for a sec, but basically I don't think that Sean Payton – oh, sorry. Kind of cutting back in.
Yep.
All right. But anyway, with the Saints, I think, yes, it's going to hurt, but I don't get on someone like Sean Payton as much as other guys. When we were talking about it the other day, I'm saying, look, he gave them so many years of his career and his life, won a Super Bowl there, was there during Hurricane Katrina. He was instrumental in repairing the Saints' image, really. I mean, they were a joke franchise their entire they were one of those lovable loser type teams that, like the Browns, that you felt bad for because they really didn't have much success. The Browns had more success historically than the Saints prior to, say, 2006. But he led them to a great place. It's not like he's bailing on them after, a couple years or doing the Bobby Petrino or the cesspool we see in college football where guys leave on a whim. this is a situation where, yes, I definitely think they contributed the fact that they're in salary cap hell. I think that is something that played a factor, but this guy's probably a little burnout. He sees some of the opportunities that are out there, especially where he can land on ESPN or a place like that, Fox, CBS, on a whim. They'd definitely be interested in him. We see that all the time recently when these guys get into media, or he could do some other kind of role with the league if he wanted to. Now, the question is, will he get back into coaching? We're not going to explore that too much right now since we're focused more on the Saints. But they're going to have to cut a lot of guys. Like you mentioned, yeah, a lot of guys are going to be out because they're going to be cut. And at least now Sean Payton doesn't have to do the dirty work, really. So they're going to have to get under the cap. Some big-name players are going to be cut or wind up leaving in free agency. It's time to tear it down and rebuild. But it's not all sad because he did bring a chip. They were very relevant for most of those years. People, you see a lot of memes get made about him because they didn't always achieve what they were looking for, but they did get a Super Bowl. They had plenty of playoff wins. So it's a sad turn of events for the Saints fans, but all in all, you're happy it happened, and now you just got to hope that the right person is hired in his place. Problem is, they don't have a leg up on anyone. They're far behind in the search because it took a while for Sean Payton to step down. So they're a little behind the ball on that front, but you get the right candidate, they'll be all right. This is a team that will support. They are supported by the fans. They have good ownership. Mickey Loomis has done a pretty solid job as GM, aside from letting Sean Payton give that huge contract to Taysom Hill. But it's not like they gave contracts to bad players.
No, but they're just bad contracts.
Right.
Especially
a lot of money got tied up in some of those players.
Now, the Saints have so far confirmed either interviewed or plan to interview their defensive coordinator, Dennis Allen, the Lions defensive coordinator, Aaron Glenn, who I don't think he's getting a head coaching job this year. Maybe next year, the year after, if the Lions keep playing hard and he keeps helping these guys develop. But Aaron Glenn and Byron Leftwich, the Bucs offensive coordinator, who we mentioned earlier, I know they requested to speak with him today. I don't know if they actually did yet or if they're set it up to do so. I have no idea. But let's put a pin in this here, Bob. I think I'm all done with the stuff that I wanted to cover. But one final thing on Sean Payton. He was there for 15 years, leaves with 152 wins. Like you said, a Super Bowl victory over Peyton Manning. Disgust me. He has a 631 career winning percentage with them, 7 NFC South titles, and top 5 offense 11 of the 15 years he was head coach there. They're talking about offensive mastermind and guru. I mean, it helps to have a Hall of Fame quarterback in Drew Brees, but you need to have a special coach to have that sort of success for that long.
Without a doubt. He's one of the better coaches of this entire century, one of the best, and he has a great resume to speak to it, and now we'll just see if he winds up on the Cowboys in a couple of years.
Yeah, that'll be the favorite. To wrap things up here, there's just a couple other head coaching things. Dan Quinn is staying in Dallas. Officially, he's taken his name out of consideration for any open jobs this offseason. I think I don't know who's going to be next, but the Vikings have their general manager. I'm going to destroy this name, but Kwesi Adofo-Mensah, the Browns vice president of football operations, was hired to be their new general manager. It looks like they're going to be heavy on analytics. And then finally, Bob, the Raiders. There's been a lot of smoke about Harbaugh leaving Michigan. But now the big name is Josh McDaniels, the Patriots offensive coordinator, who has turned down head coaching vacancies and turned down interviews in the past to stay with the Patriots as the assumed next up once Belichick retires because Bill's getting old. So it's been assumed that McDaniels would stay there until Bill retires, then take over for the Patriots as their head coach. But he's getting an interview. I don't know if he has, but Josh McDaniels is on the radar for the Raiders. How serious do you think that is? And keep in mind, they have also interviewed a couple of Patriots front office people. One, Dave Ziegler, the director of player personnel for the Patriots. They've already interviewed him, so that's complete. They have another one that they interviewed who has connections to the Patriots as well. So, and they've also interviewed Gerard Mayo, the Patriots' current inside linebackers coach. If McDaniels gets hired as head coach, maybe Mayo joins him as the defensive coordinator out there in Las Vegas. But what do you feel about that?
For me, in Las Vegas, there's 3 options. I think it's clear cut. I don't think they need to extensively search as much as the other teams in the league might need to do. So either 1, get Jim Harbaugh, because that's the best possible candidate out there. We've heard reported interest. We don't know if that's actually valid and going to be the case, but Jim Harbaugh absolutely should be their number 1 option. And if they can pry him away from Michigan, that's a slam dunk. I know he's a great coach. We've seen it at both college level and professional level, multiple teams in college. So he's definitely the number 1 option. Number 2, to me, is just hire Rich Bisaccia, who just helped them manage through all these crazy incidents that happened throughout the year, whether it was John Gruden getting fired for his racist and misogynistic remarks and emails years ago, or the Henry Ruggs situation, tragically claiming the life of a woman and her dog. You had, Damon Arnett show up on Twitter brandishing a bunch of guns and acting a fool. There's just so much they dealt with on top of the normal NFL stuff like injuries and COVID, and to win their last 4 games, get in the playoffs, play tight against the Bengals. He should be number 2 option. Number 3, yes, McDaniels. I think the interest is real. I think they would want him. But to me, if I'm Josh McDaniels, I'm not going for that job. Not that it isn't attractive, but I also don't think it's some amazing spot that you have to go for. And he's got it because he flamed out with Denver. If he flames out again in the second job, he's never getting a head coaching job again. It just doesn't happen. You don't get that many chances to be a head coach in the league. So what he needs to do is stay in New England, wait till Bill retires, and then take the job. That's his best move.
Now, moving on from Las Vegas, continuing on with the coaches around the league, the Jacksonville Jaguars, they have a very interesting situation going on there. Byron Leftwich is going to have his second interview with the team. Kellen Moore is going to have a second interview with the team. And I believe Doug Peterson was the other coach. They had already interviewed, and he might be getting a second interview as well. It sounds like they're leaning towards Leftwich as their head coach, but it sounds like he's only going to come along if they get rid of Balky, the current general manager there in Jacksonville. It seems like nobody wants to work with this man. I'm not exactly sure why. I haven't really looked into that, but I know he had issues in San Francisco. He's had issues here, and I've read that there's hesitation around the league from coordinators and other potential coaches of taking this Jacksonville job, despite having the first pick, despite having Trevor Lawrence, despite having a ton of cap space. They don't want to work with Trent Baalke. So I've been reading that the Leftwich comes over. They're hiring Adrian Wilson from the Cardinals to be their GM, and Leftwich will sign on as their head coach. We'll see if that happens. Are you buying that, Bob?
I do buy some of it. It's just tough because Shad Khan doesn't know what the hell he's doing. Their owner.
Nice.
They hired Urban Meyer. That was the apple of his eye, and that just was an awful decision. That was one hire we were 100% right on. We didn't like it. We thought it wouldn't work, and it didn't. Didn't even make it through an entire season. So that was an embarrassment for them. And then, the Jaguars fans, what they're, wherever they are, the few of them, I heard about them like staging a protest and wearing clown suits and clown makeup because they think ownership's a clown show for doing this. You fire the head coach, but not the GM. It's not like they've been winning a lot of games where you can say, oh, well, the GM should stay in place and that we need to just fix the head coach. That's not the case. It didn't work out with the 49ers toward the end there. He had a bad relationship with Jim Harbaugh. Now you hear problems with him in Jacksonville. He absolutely needs to be out of there. But I don't know if it's going to happen. We're already 3 weeks removed from the end of the season. So it just doesn't seem like that's going to happen. Maybe it will. I think Leftwich just makes a ton of sense. He obviously was the quarterback there. Fans still love him. Not that he was some amazing quarterback, but he always played hard. He tried his best. He's a well-respected guy. I think that would make a lot of sense. Doug Peterson as well, I think would bring them some respectability. I don't think he's a great coach. Maybe it was a little bit of a fluke with the Eagles, but I definitely think he'd at least be accountable, and they definitely improve. But it is important, and I like that they are going after an offensive guy because they need it for Trevor Lawrence.
So I do want to catch up on some comments here that we have just totally missed. Sorry, guys, but we're going to catch up now. So Gunner's Boss, let's go Jamaica. 1 Reggae Boys leading Mexico 1-0. Hoping we can keep them. I'm assuming he's talking about soccer.
Yeah, I would imagine. I don't think Jamaica is playing Mexico in American football.
Well, no, but it could. I don't know. I don't know what else could it be. But I'm going to assume it's soccer, and they were leading when he posted this comment. I'll be curious to see if that's still the case. The next comment from Gunner's Boss. Thanks, by the way, Gunner's Boss, for your contributions, and then folks who are watching, feel free to comment any questions, concerns, etc. Gunner's Boss. Will Eric Bieniemy, the Chiefs offensive coordinator, get a head coaching job now that so many teams need head coaches? Bob, Eric Bieniemy, head coach this offseason, yes or no? Not if he should, will he?
Oh, I know. I heard the question.
Just making sure.
I'll say no. I don't know. It's crazy that he still hasn't gotten the job.
Yeah, I'm going to say no as well. I don't know what the deal is. I don't know if he just doesn't want to do it or if he's just comfortable in Kansas City, or maybe he's waiting for Andy Reid to retire so he can take over there. I don't know what it is. Eric Bieniemy should be a head coach. I don't think it's going to happen this offseason. I wanted him in Detroit last offseason before we hired Dan Campbell. But, we can't always get what we want. You can't always get what you want. Okay, so Gunner's Boss asks about Brian Flores. And we haven't really talked about Flores, but he is someone who's been making the rounds on the coaching carousel. He went to Chicago and interviewed with them at least once confirmed. He's interviewed with the Houston Texans. He's also interviewed with the Giants, and I believe he's one of their 3 finalists, along with Brian Daboll and Leslie Frazier. Both Daboll and Frazier have their second interviews pending, and with them bringing on the Bills' assistant general manager, I think Daboll is the favorite out there for the Giants. But, Bob, the question was about Brian Flores. Where do you think he's going to be? Is he going to be head coach when it's all said and done moving into next offseason, next season, or he's going to take the year off and regroup next year?
I really would think so, especially because everyone was so surprised that he got fired by Miami. This isn't one of those typical situations where the guy gets fired, jumps back in too quickly, because it's not like Eric Mangini or Adam Gase or guys like those who jumped right to a next job, and it shouldn't have happened. It was basically a surprise firing. He's thought of as a good coach throughout the league. So I do think he'll get a job, especially with so many openings. I'd be shocked. He's getting plenty of interviews. It's not like teams are soured toward him. So it sent shockwaves to the entire NFL community when it happened. I expect him to get a job, especially with so many openings. I was going to say 9. Obviously, a couple have been filled, but we had 9 total, which is insane. That we thought there would be maybe 4 openings, maybe 1 extra that came out of nowhere, but this was the most out of nowhere. And so I do think he gets a job. I'm going to go, I'll say if I had to pick just one team, I'll say the Texans. But I think the Giants job is definitely there. And just, we won't get back on the Giants, but please not Leslie Frazier. If it's between those 3, Brian Daboll or Brian Flores, either one.
The next comment is, again, from Gunner's Boss. Like I said, there's been a few that we have missed out on. He says, no Gruden, got scapegoat for the football team, Washington football team. And that's something that we've talked about a lot, and we've talked about on the Wednesday Pick'em show with Mike.
He was the scapegoat. It was more about the Washington football team, but these are still things that can't be said. I don't know how they got leaked. It's messed up, but regardless, I mean, that really wasn't the topic. I mean, we just had to mention that's what went on with the Raiders, but that's a story from a couple months ago.
And now a fun one here, and this is from our buddy Vance, and Vance McCree says, Bobby!
What up, Vance? Hope all is well.
What
Haven't
up, buddy?
seen that man in a while.
Vance, you gotta stop fronting, dude. Let's get online. Let's get on the call, all right? I know I suck, but let's do something special. Your butt. And we were curious. We were curious what was going on with Jamaica and Mexico. It is soccer. And unfortunately, it was the World Cup qualifier, the CONCACAF qualifier, Jamaica was up 1-0 in the 50th minute after a goal by Johnson, giggity. But Mexico scored 2 goals late, 81st minute and the 83rd minute to take the 2-1 lead. And they went into extra time. They got 4 extra minutes, but Jamaica could not tie it up. So Mexico beat Jamaica 2-1. Bob, you suck.
Wait, what? What were we talking about?
It's so sleepy. Oh, man. We went from
Kickball?
football to football. Yeah. Let's see. Next comment from Vance. How many years do you think McCarthy has left in Dallas? That is a very good question, Vance. And I think, honestly, I thought he was going to get fired this offseason and probably get replaced by Kellen Moore because that's the golden child, and that's who they're bringing on next. Probably either him or Dan Quinn, who, like I said earlier, declined any future interviews, and he's staying with Dallas. So one of them two is gunning for that Dallas job. They're going to have to be fighting Sean Payton next offseason. But, Bob, you and I both agree? 1 year left?
Really hot. He has one of the hottest seats already going into next season.
So hot right now.
If he doesn't at least win a playoff game, he's out.
Mike Steed is so hot right now. So hot.
So hot.
And he says, good to see you boys. Thank you for tuning in, Vance. We appreciate the love and appreciate the comments. And the more recent one, unfortunately, I feel your pain, Vance, on this one. Jamaica soccer is like the Knicks. Mexico is also pretty decent. Yes, they are, Vance. Mexico is pretty damn decent indeed at soccer. And I think that pretty much wraps it up here for us. I do want to throw a little bit more love towards betting.net. They are sponsoring the show, gruelingtruth.com, and betting.net finds the best promotions, offers, and bonus codes so you don't have to. Head on over to their website now to take advantage of things like free bets and matching deposits. That's betting.net. And Bob, do you have any other thoughts, questions, comments, concerns, anything like that?
No, I do not.
Perfect. We are on Twitter. We are on Instagram. Bob, why don't you give them our handle?
That handle is DB Talking Sports. D as in Dan, B as in Bob. Make sure you follow us. Give us a like. Give us some feedback. We appreciate it. Dan's got a ton of shows going on. A lot going on in that man's life. Doing draft shows, Monday nights, pick shows. Although that's winding down, so we'll see what content he pumps out next. We got to do Shoot the J again on Tuesday. I slacked on this past Tuesday. It's okay, though. Happens. We'll get back to it. And I'll do my bets on Saturday, so I'm going to post that. We're winding down with that, too. But I'll pick the over-unders and against the spread in the NFL, so stay tuned for that. And thank you again for tuning in.
That's it. And one more comment from Gunner's boss. Bang, bang, bang. Dan and Bobby talking Reggae Boys soccer with the little soccer ball emoji. Bang, bang. I'm Dan Kornhauser.
I'm Bobby Hunt.
Thank you guys for tuning in. We'll catch you guys next time.